This meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. This board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Nasilevich?
Here.
Mr. Halpin?
Here.
Ms. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Skank?
Here.
Mr. Sion?
Here. Thank you for coming to this meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware that this meeting is audio and videotaped and may be carried live on television. First, I'll outline our procedures. A summary of the appeal is presented by the staff, then the appellant will present its case. The board members may then ask questions of the appellant. After that, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being recognized by the chairman. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify and/or ask questions of the board after being recognized by the chairman. All persons wishing to testify, whether for or against the appeal, may only do so after being sworn in. When testifying, each person must come forward to the podium after being recognized, speak into the microphone, state their name, address, and any affiliation to the case. All persons testifying will be limited to 4 minutes unless a board member requests additional time. All testimony is given to the board only. No comments or questions are directed to the appellant or anyone else in the audience. The board will only hear new, non-repetitive evidence or questions. Should someone wish to show support of previous testimony, they may do so by following the testimony procedures and stating their support of previous testimony. Now, all those who will be testifying today, would you please rise? Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, there are not.
Do you have a motion to approve the agenda?
Yes.
Can we get a motion to approve the agenda as currently?
I'll go ahead and move to approve the minutes as written.
Agenda.
Agenda as written.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Nasilevich?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Ms. Wagner?
Aye.
Mr. Skank?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye. Any changes or comments to the minutes from last month's meeting?
There was one change to the minutes. The date at the end of the minutes said that the next meeting would be on July 5th, and the meeting's on July 12th.
Does anyone else have any changes?
On page 3, there's another C needed in my name.
Thank you for letting us know. Any other changes? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve as amended?
I move that we approve the minutes as written.
As amended?
As amended.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Nasilevich?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Ms. Wagner?
Aye.
Mr. Skank?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye. And we'll discuss case number 10-2018 BZA for 4455 Mount Carmel Road. Would the staff please read the report?
So these are our standards to be considered tonight. For case 10-2018 BZA, our applicant is Zachary K. Peterson on behalf of Evans Gravel, Inc. It's located at 4455 Mount Carmel Road, Book 500, page 281, parcel 32. The current zoning is the ID Industrial Development District, and the request tonight is a conditional use per Article 3.1C of the Anderson Township zoning resolution to extend a conditional use that has previously been permitted by case 16-2003 BZA and case 2-2009 BZA for an additional 15 years for a surface mine. So a little bit of history for case 10-2018. A conditional use approval for a surface mine was originally issued on October 3rd, 2003, with 11 conditions. This was approved for 5 years, including 1 year to complete pre-mining preparations. Then the BZA heard the request for an extension on February 5th, 2009, and this was in case 2-2009. This was continued for 6 months so that the applicant could demonstrate compliance with the original conditional use permit. Case 2-2009 BZA was heard again on August 6, 2009, November 5th, 2009, and January 7th, 2010, allowing the applicant time to include additional information and answer the board's questions. The Board of Zoning Appeals granted the approval of the conditional use extension in case 2009 with 26 conditions. So this is a map of the property. This is an aerial of the property, and this is a topographic map of the property. This is the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. Staff requests that a larger site plan be submitted so that it's easier to read. These are pictures that were taken by staff during a visit last Friday to the property. So this is looking towards the parking lot in Mount Carmel in the background. This is of a hard, clean fill that's located on the property. And this is of the back of the property where a previous railroad track is located. So the following are the staff's findings based on the 26 conditions that were in the previous conditional use permit. I'm not going to read every conditional use, or every condition, just the ones that staff has a bit more questions about. So the first one is that the site has to be compliant with regulations and requirements of all of the relevant agencies. So we reached out to all of the agencies that were listed in the conditions and only heard back from the Ohio EPA. And they had 2 violations on file. The first violation was that Evans Gravel Inc. failed to obtain a permit to discharge industrial wastewater to an unnamed tributary to the Little Miami River. And then the second violation was that Evans Gravel Inc. failed to obtain a permit to install prior to installation of a sewage holding tank on site. And the letter of notice of violation was sent to Evans Gravel Inc. on April 6, 2018. The second is that they should obtain a opacity test through the duration of the conditional use permit. And the last test that was completed was in 2009, prior to the mining operations beginning. And staff is of the opinion that another test should be conducted if required by the authorizing agency. Number 2, the substantial conformance with the plot plan dated August 12, 2003, delineating the 30 acres of property is required. So the plot plan that was submitted was Exhibit P to the application, and as mentioned before, staff requests that an updated plot plan be submitted to delineate what areas have been mined and what is still to be mined on the property. Number 3, the equipment used to be present on the property at any given time is limited to what was submitted through the packet, and so it was stated that there would not need to be more than 10 to 12 pieces of equipment at any one point in time on the property. Staff isn't able to determine if this is in compliance. However, a letter and a list of equipment was submitted as Exhibit Q to this application. Number 5, all mining activities on the property shall cease, and this conditional use permit shall expire no later than October 20th, 2018. Within 2 weeks of the beginning of the 24th month after the issuance of this extension to the conditional use permit, the applicant shall provide documentation to township staff showing compliance with all applicant non-township agencies. And However, we never received documentation showing compliance with all applicable non-township agencies at the beginning of the 24 months, nor at the beginning of the 60th month. Number 9, all trucks exiting the property are to make a left-hand turn to go onto Round Bottom Road unless they cannot fit under the railroad bridge. Staff believes that more information is needed to determine the compliance. Number 10, there is to be compliance with a letter submitted on behalf of Craig V. Simonson. The letter was submitted as Exhibit T with the application, but staff believes more information is needed to determine compliance. Number 11, the conditional use permit for the property shall be surface mining only. This is in compliance, however, there is an area on the property that's being used as a clean, hard-filled dump. Number 12, the reclamation plan submitted to ODNR, a copy of which is attached hereto as Exhibit 5, shall be followed by applicant when mining operations. This is only applicable when operations cease. The ODNR permit expires October 20th, 2018. Number 13, the mining equipment shall be maintained in good order and be the best available technology, and they shall be employed on conveyors and screens, this including urethane coating on surfaces, screens and impactors. A noise test was submitted as Exhibit S. However, staff believes more information is needed to determine if the best available technology is being used. Number 17, the mine shall employ the enforcement policy submitted to the applicant on October 23rd, 2009. For this, staff believes that more information is needed for compliance. And then the second part of Condition 17 was that, in addition, Evans shall, prior to commencement of any further mining activity, shall maintain a sign at the entrance displaying, listing complete procedures for the public. And this sign is in place, located at an entrance to the property, providing a number to call with inquiries about the property. 18 is about complaints being submitted to the township, if there are any, and there has never been a complaint log submitted to township staff. Number 20, the gravage store piles on the property shall be no taller than the Mount Carmel Road right-of-way elevation immediately adjacent to the mine's current primary ingress and egress points. Staff believes that more information is needed to determine. Number 22, low-volume backup alarms employing white noise technology shall be utilized on Evans equipment used on the property. Staff believes that more information is needed to determine compliance. When staff was on the property, there were trucks not using the white noise technology that was required by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Number 23, the impactor to be used in conjunction with gravel mining operations shall be limited to a maximum capacity of 100 tons per hour. Staff believes that more information is needed to determine this compliance. And then that is the end of those conditions. And then the standards to be considered are following Article 2.1 or 2.12D7, as well as designated specific criteria uses of the Industrial Development District contained in Article 3.16F. And that specific criteria includes modifications by the Board of Zoning Appeals. However, this is not applicable. Number 2, emissions for the property. Surface mining activities are regulated by the OEPA and HCDOES. Number 3, for regulated substances, this is not applicable to this case. Number 4, vibration and shock. Staff believes that more information is needed to determine compliance. Number 5, for nuisance. Staff never received complaint logs from the Evans Gravel, Inc., stating if there have been current or past complaints. As stated above, we received notice of violation from the OEPA, which described 2 violations on the property. Number 6, landscaping and other requirements. When the original conditional use request was granted, there was a small landscaping berm along Mount Carmel Road. This berm has since grown, providing ample screening from the road to the mine. And number 7, consideration of enhancements is also not applicable. And then these are the standards to be considered from Article 2.12D8A that were stated at the beginning of the presentation. The proposed use and development will comply with the spirit and intent of the zoning resolution. The location of the surface mine is within the ID Industrial Development District and fits within all activities that are described to take place in an industrial-type zone. There will be no adverse effect by granting an extension for the existing surface mine if the mine is maintained within the regulations and standards of the OPEA and HCDOES in accordance with the Anderson Township zoning regulation standards of conditional uses within ID Industrial Development District. The mine should have no adverse effect. There is no historical aspect of the site to be maintained. However, the violation from the OEPA regarding discharging industrial waste into the unnamed tributary needs to be addressed and remedied by the applicant. The township actively seeks to maintain the Little Miami Riverfront as a major natural resource in the community as identified in the 2016 Comprehensive Plan. In the 2016 Comprehensive Plan, the Anchor area was identified as the township's target site for future non-retail economic development opportunities, and this use is in line with the non-retail economic base, potentially bringing jobs to the Anchor area. These are the standards to be considered that I just went through, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Nope.
You define what a opacity test is?
That would be a question for the applicant.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, will the appellant or the appellant's representative please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, state their name, address, and any affiliation to the present appeal.
Is this too loud? Good. May it please the board, my name is Zach Peterson. It's my honor today to represent Evans Gravel in connection with our extension for this extension of our conditional use permit. By way of introduction or background rather, this mine is what's called the Anchor area of Anderson Township. It's in the northeast corner of the township. It's an industrial area. As Sarah noted, it is in the Industrial Development District. That district is designed to improve the quality of commercial research and industrial use and enhance its value to provide significant area where commercial research and industrial development may be encouraged and guided for the benefit of the total community. By way of background, Evans first began performing surface mining in 2003 pursuant to a permit that this board issued then. It was a 5-year permit. Before it expired, Evans requested an extension of that permit. That was granted in 2008. As Sarah noted, Ms. Donovan noted, it expires here in October of this year. The reason why it expires in October of this year is not because this board said, well, you get 10 years and that's the only time you get. When the permit was first issued, it was issued by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources in October of 2013. The ODNR issues permits for 15 years. It therefore expired in October of this year. This board granted its conditional use permit to coincide with the expiration of the ODNR permit, just by way of background. As staff noted, there is a 77-acre parcel on which we conduct surface mining on approximately 30 acres. The entire property is not used as a surface mine, even though it is permitted through ODNR, the entire 77 acres. It is only permitted through Anderson Township to use those 30 acres, and we only use those 30 acres. I will get to specific things about the clean hard fill dump that we have a permit for, and that is not part of the 30 acres that's being surface mined. There was a confusion about the property as defined in the permit being the 30 acres versus the property as a layman would understand that, which is the 77 acres. Sort of jumping all the way to the end here, as Ms. Donovan noted, when the township redid its comprehensive plan in 2016, it specifically said that the Anchor area has been long identified as an industrial center of the Anderson with focus on job creation and economic growth. That is exactly what we do at that mine. To put our operation into context, when we are running the mine full-time, we have 3, maybe 4 employees. Within a 1 mile of us are major manufacturing operations that employ far more trucks and far more people and have far more impact on the greater area than we do. There's Pavestone, which is nearby. There's Senco Corporation, which is just required by Kyocera. It's a large fastener manufacturing plant. They've got a couple hundred employees in there. B-Way Corporation's right down the street. They also have a large manufacturing facility. We have our own. Evans Stoneworks is on the same street. We create stone and manufacture stone there. So we are but one of what I would call major manufacturing and industrial employers in that area. Another thing that I think is important for the board to consider is that this is surface mining. It is very different from mining as I think most people think of mining. And so maybe 10 years ago, if people have been around that long, Martin Marietta was approved to do underground mining in the Anchor area, less than 1 mile from where we do our surface mining. Surface mining is different. There's nothing underground. There's no guys with hats wearing helmets. There's no shafts. Nobody's going underground. It's just digging literally into the ground. You get a material. You put that material into a series of processors and screeners. It screens the material based on the type of material that you want. It is not underground mining. Another relevant point, I think, is that we are sort of our own neighbor. The Evans group of companies, if you will, owns about 600 acres in the Anchor area. And so the entity or person most impacted by our operation is, in fact, ourselves. By contrast, there are very few residences in the area. There are some residences on Broadwell Road. We own some of those residences. We rent them out. There are some residents on Mount Carmel Road, but by and large, there are not that many homeowners down there. By way of background in terms of why we had to reapply for permits, in 2003 the permit was issued for 5 years. Evans encountered significant difficulties in getting the mining equipment. It is not sort of box and shelf equipment that you go into Lowe's and you pick up and you set it up that afternoon and you start mining. This stuff is customized and especially made. It takes a long time to get in. It's very expensive. Once you get it in, it takes a long time to set up. These are some of the difficulties that we encountered when we purchased the property. It was it was in a state of disrepair. There were appliances and tires, and people had been illegally dumping things for years and years and years and years. It was covered in all kinds of brush and things, and so we cleaned up the property very much. We cleared a lot of the room for it. It took a long time to get that going. In 2007, obviously, we had the Great Recession. And so when we finally were able to start mining in 2006, 2007, all of a sudden the market fell out from under us and we didn't have a lot of demand. And because we didn't have a lot of demand, we did not have a lot of production. And so we estimated when mining began that there was 1.5 million tons of material to be mined. To date, we have mined less than half of that. The machines talk about doing 100,000 tons a year. We've only hit that in the last couple of years as the economy has rebounded. I think on average we're doing 40 to 60,000 tons a year. We're doing nowhere close to what we're given permission to do, and a lot of that is market forces outside of our control. As Ms. Donovan noted, there are a host of other governmental agencies that regulate both the site itself and our activities on that site. Anderson Township is but one of them. We are also regulated by Hamilton County Department of Health, by the Ohio EPA, by MSHA, by OSHA, and there's several other ones as well that regulate us. So we are subject to quarterly inspections, monthly inspections. We have tons of permits for the equipment that we have down there. All the equipment is permitted through the EPA. All the roadways are permitted through the EPA. All the piles of material are permitted through the EPA. That's an annual process that we go through. So there's a lot of people sort of making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing down there. I want to tick through some of the standards, or rather these conditions that Ms. Donovan was talking about, because I think some of these things in here sort of give a different impression, and so I've got some documents and I wanted to tick through. I'm going to start with number 1. Seems like a decent starting place. The EPA violations. So what I don't want the board to think is that, like, we've known about those for like 10 years and we just sort of haven't done anything about them. The reality is that we've had EPA people on that site for 15 years since we've owned it. Not one time in those 15 years did anybody mention that we needed a MPDS permit. In February of this year, I met with EPA folks on that site to discuss some issues. It was then, and only then, did EPA say, you guys should get an MPDS permit and you need a permit for your holding tank. So that was February of 2018. In March of 2018, I engaged a professional services company by the name of Dine Comply to get those permits rolling. The EPA issued the permit, or issued the notice of violation in April of 2018. I talked with the regulator today. That is issued more as a tracking device for the EPA to make sure that we are doing it, and not so much because we failed to do it. And so we already have the holding tank permit, and the MPDS permit is in the works. That is a very, very comprehensive permit, and expensive permit to get. It is complicated in our case by the fact that one of our neighbors discharges water waste onto our property that we then sort of have to deal with. And so we're working with the EPA to figure out what the standards are going to be for that wastewater that's ultimately, it gets put into the creek, because we are not generating most of it. We're sort of inheriting it from one of our neighbors. So we do have the holding tank permit. It's in hand. We will have the MPDS permit later this year. We've engaged a professional to do that, and we're sort of going through that arduous process. Regarding the opacity test, I think Mr. Sine asked kind of what that is. And so that's basically a test in terms of how much smoke or exhaust from equipment or trucks comes and how much light you can see through that. And so as staff noted, staff is of the opinion that another test should be done if required by the authorizing agency. An opacity test was done in 2009. It is a one-time test, and the authorizing agency would be Hamilton County, and Hamilton County has not requested that another test be done. If you turn to Exhibit K in your binders, everybody has a binder? Everybody got a binder? If you turn to Exhibit K in the binder, this was sort of discussed with Anderson Township way back in 2011. I won't read the whole thing because that's just offensive for me to do, but you guys can read. But one passage, it says, in other words, as long as Evans' most recent opacity test has been passed, Evans is in compliance. If the Hamilton County Department of Environmental Services require further opacity testing in the future, we have to pass that test. So, of course, we would do that if Hamilton County came to us and said, hey, you need to do an opacity test. Of course, we would do that. We did pass the opacity test in 2009. We have no reason to believe that we wouldn't pass another one. We have just not been asked to do that. Condition number 2 talks about what areas have been mined and what areas have not been mined. If you turn to Exhibit B in your book, and I apologize to staff because this was the electronic copy that we got. This here is the full copy, and right here, and I'll give this to you guys, right here answers all those questions about what we've mined, what we're allowed to mine, and what areas are left to be mined. So I hope that suffices. But if you look in B there, you can kind of see, and Ms. Donovan had a good picture up there at one point. You can see which part of the 77 acres is being mined. It is within the permit. And it's noted in the exhibit that I just gave her that it's about 27 acres. That's further confirmed if you go to Exhibit M, which is a letter from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources by an inspector by the name of Rich Pennington. He goes into great detail about how big the total site is, how many acres we've been mining, and the fact that we don't have any outstanding violations with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. So I think that those things in conjunction hopefully satisfy that condition. Number 3 discusses the type and number of pieces of equipment that we can have on the site. It says 10 to 12 pieces of equipment. Site was on staff last Friday. There were, I think, 6 or 7 pieces of equipment at that time. All of those pieces of equipment I will represent to the board were on the list. I looked at the list earlier this morning. The first 2 things are loaders and track hose, and that's exactly what we saw. We saw loaders and track hose. So everything that was on there is approved, and there was only about 6 or 7 pieces of equipment, not 10 or 12, which were permitted.
Zach?
Yes, sir.
So you have 1 loader, or you have 5 loaders?
So the list is submitted is not number, it's not number of loaders, it just says loader. So it's really types. So there's loaders, there's track hose, there's off-road dump trucks is another one, there's bobcats is one of them.
Bulldozers?
Yes, exactly.
So the S means there's more than 1?
There can be more than one. Sometimes, depending on the operation, we may need more loaders than we may need track hose. Depends if we're digging the material out, we would use a track hoe. If we're loading the material that we've already dug out into the processing plant, we may use more loaders.
So you have more than 9 pieces of equipment?
Yes, we collectively as a company have well more than 9 pieces of equipment. We never have more than 10 or 12 pieces of equipment on this site, on the
Okay.
line at any given
So
time.
no more than 10 to 12?
That's correct.
On the site
Yeah.
at one time?
And it changes, fluctuating based on our needs.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? No.
Do have one question.
Yes, sir.
I want to go back to number 1. You had mentioned a neighbor was causing some of the pollution. Is that, and I know also you, back in one of your earlier statements, you mentioned Evans is one of your, basically, neighbors. I mean, Evans owns a lot of property. Is it an Evans company that's causing that pollution, or is it a different company?
So it's not necessarily pollution, it's just that we generate water, and that water touches gravel. And when it touches gravel, it picks up, different particles. And so in this case, is there any way we can get one of those aerials back on there? It'll help me explain this far better.
Thank you.
So that water is the water being touched, and I'll show you here where it goes and why we need the MPS. That one's perfect. Can you go back one more? That one, that's the one I want. Perfect, thank you. Yeah, that'd be awesome. We have pointers. So our area that we mine is generally in this corner here. Some of the gravel touches this water, okay? And when the gravel touches the water, it picks up all different types of particles. And because it's an industrial operation, this water here goes kind of underneath here and connects to here. And it comes out this way. About, 500-600 yards, we'll call it, over here is the Little Miami River. And eventually, this is the unnamed tributary right here. So eventually, water that we touch right here eventually makes its way all the way to the Little Miami River. And so here, where it leaves our property, that's where the permit is. And what it's doing is testing all the different particles that are in that water. And for each different particle, there is what the EPA calls a parameter. And we need to be within that parameter of the testing. And so what we're doing right now is we're going and we're figuring out what all those particles are that are being tested and what the parameters are going to be. So it's not necessarily that the water's been polluted, it's just been touched with particles, and it may have things and it may not. The other thing that I was mentioning is right here is Senco. And Senco's operations as a manufacturer put water into here, which migrates onto our property. So one of the, I won't call it difficulties, one of the complexities and one of the reasons why the permit is taking a little while to get is because we need to figure out how to handle this stuff that's really not our causing, but it's coming off of our property and eventually being tested.
Senco they're not affiliated in any way with?
No, we have no affiliation with Senco. Senco is a manufacturing company. It was recently purchased by a Japanese company called Kyocera. We don't have any ownership or relationship with them other than we're neighbors. Senco did submit, I forget which one of my exhibits is the letters in support, but Senco did submit a letter in support. It's Exhibit D, and it is one of those letters in there, basically saying that Senco had no issue with us and that they hope that they look at us favorably. It's on Kyocera letterhead.
Yeah, it's the very first one in our packet.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank
Okay,
you.
great, thank you. Number 5 deals with the complaint and the compliance. And so these deadlines, the 24th and the 60th month, they precede my time with Evans. From what I understand, there was some confusion about whether a support or a report needed to be submitted if we weren't having compliance issues. And that's all that was. So no, we did not submit something affirmatively saying, hey, we're in compliance, we're not in compliance. It's my understanding that was, an administrative oversight or some sort of confusion about whether we needed to do that if we weren't having any issues. And the reality is that save this MPDS permit that just happened a couple months ago, we really had no issues down there. Skipping ahead to number 6 compliant, number 7 compliant, skipping ahead to number 8. And so number 8 is a letter by Savage Walker. Staff notes this letter has been submitted as Exhibit R with the application. Staff believes more information is needed to determine compliance. And so that letter sufficed in 2009 when we were granted the extension. It's our opinion that it should suffice now. If it doesn't, if you turn to Exhibits S, I think it adequately addresses. So what the letter from Savage Walker basically talked about was nuisance, odor, noise, dust, vibrations, those types of things. Those things have been comprehensively addressed here recently in Exhibits S and S1 by 2 environmental experts that we engaged, Tetra Tech, which is a nationally known environmental firm. Matt Wagner from Tetra Tech went down there and personally observed and commented on the nuisance types things and the absence of them. The second one is from a gentleman by the name of George Kipp, who has been doing this and has been an expert in the field for about 45 years. He also personally went down there and commented on those things. And so we believe that Exhibit S adequately takes care of the issue that's addressed by Condition 8 and the letter from Savage Walker. Number 9, the trucks exiting the property. Admittedly, unless we have a camera down there, we don't know that every single truck that left went the right way, in this case left, unless it could fit through the railroad trestle, in which case we let them go right so we don't hit the railroad trestle. I can tell you that we've had a truck driver do that, and that's not a good day. I can also tell you that when our drivers start, all new drivers go through our orientation and training program. Part of that orientation and training program is that we explain to them, look, we have a permit to run this mine. When you go to the mine, you have to turn left unless your truck will not fit. And the truck drivers know whether they can fit under that bridge or not. It's got a 12-foot, 6-inch clearance.
Do you think signage would be helpful?
It's signed saying turn left unless you can't fit? Yeah. That would probably eliminate, or be a friendly reminder, or eliminate any confusion, sir.
Is there a sign?
There was a sign. I had talked with Mr. Drury, and we had a sign that was approved, and I think some truck driver, whether it was us or another truck driver, hit that sign, and that's been a couple months ago, and it has not been replaced yet.
So where would be the best place to put the sign so the truck wouldn't hit it?
Probably the sign that was referenced earlier about the complaints, so we have a sign that says, if you have any questions about our operations and our land or whatever, please call us. Probably there when you're leaving, so it's the last thing that the driver sees before the driver turns, would probably make the most sense to me.
So was the sign damaged so much?
For the property, and the P in property is capitalized. Shall be for surface mining only. The staff notes compliant, however, there's an area on the property that is being used as a clean hard-fill dump. That property is in lowercase. And so if you go to the permit, which is Exhibit A, and you go to the second page of the existing permit that was issued in 2009, about 3/4 of the way through the first paragraph, property is defined. That's that big P. And it says the 30-acre portion. And so what I don't want the board to think is we are using part of the surface mining area to have a clean hard-fill dump. We are absolutely not doing that. We are using the remaining 40-odd acres as a clean hard dump. This here, Sarah, can I give you some? So this here is basically permission from Hamilton County Public Health saying that we are allowed to use the remainder of that parcel as a clean hard-fill dump. You'll note that the parcel number in the Exhibit AA, which you're all about to get, matches the parcel number in footnote 1 of our application, which identifies that parcel number for the entire property. As I note, it's the same parcel number. So we are only using the 30 acres to mine. That's also confirmed by the big map that I gave Sarah. The remaining 40-something acres, yes, we use as a clean hard fill dump, and we have permission to do that. So that you guys know, a clean hard fill dump is not trash. That's what we call sanitary debris. Clean hard fill dump is bricks, asphalt, ground up concrete, those types of things. It's a clean material. There's no mattresses or tires or household trash or McDonald's bags or anything like that. That's a different kind of dump. That's not what we use that property for, because it's not permitted for that. Any questions on that 11? That gets sort of confusing. Little P's, big P's. Number 12, no issue. Number 13 talks about best available technology, what I'll call BAT. And so the purpose of BAT, obviously, is that you don't have a bunch of noise from the operation. And so staff correctly notes that we had a noise test, and that's submitted as Exhibit S. And so part of what Mr. Kipp did is rent, I don't know what it's actually called, but it's a dosimeter, is that correct? A dosimeter, and it measures the decibel level. And he has a bunch of different readings there. And in summary, needless to say, all those readings register well below the accepted OSHA standards for decibels. So we do not have a noise issue. And so two things about BAT specifically. The fact that we do not have a noise issue strongly suggests that we are using the best available technology. If we weren't using the best available technology, we would have a noise issue. The second comment I'll make on that is that our president, Mr. Evans, who purchases all the equipment that is used in the mine, I put it lightly, likes equipment. And so I also double as a CFO for the company, and we spend a significant amount of money on equipment. And I can tell you that if there's equipment out there, we have it. And we have nice equipment, and that helps us produce a better quality product. So we are using the best available technology, and I think that's proven by Exhibit S, which talks about the noise readings. 14, no issue there. 15, compliant. 16, compliant. Number 17, to your point, Mr. Halpin, talks about the signage. So we do have a sign, and it says, if you have any questions, please call us. This is the number. Those calls get directly routed to me. That is our complaint procedure. If somebody has a complaint, it comes right to my desk immediately. There's not a big process. We're a relatively small operation. I take the calls personally myself, and I handle those. So that is the sign that we have for that, and I'm happy to take those calls.
And the left turn sign's going to be right there with that one.
The left turn sign will be on there by the end of the week, tomorrow.
Tomorrow is the end of the week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you have a
Kind of put
log?
myself a box there, didn't I?
Yeah.
I'll have it.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Do you have a log of your calls?
We do not log all our calls. That come in totally, or that are just
No,
about this?
You said that you took the calls that come from the sign.
I do take the calls that are complaints about any of our operations whatsoever. All complaints come to me. I have not, we received one complaint in the 4 years that I've been there about it. That's it.
Is there a log prior to you being there?
There is no log prior to me being there. No. And it's my understanding, just to follow up on that, is because we don't really get a lot of complaints about our gravel pit operations. We just don't. It's only a three-man show, and we just don't generally get any complaints about it. We don't have any issues with it. We get some complaints about other things. Sometimes there's mud on the road, and I get those complaints, but they're not specifically tied to the gravel pit. We may be hauling a job that's a muddy job or something like that, and our trucks are leaving a muddy area. And I get all those calls.
Do you keep a log of your other complaints?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. Number 18, again, I think there was some confusion, and I know that Mr. Muto and Mr. Drury had exchanged some emails way back in 2011 about this. And again, it's the same, we don't have a lot of complaints, so we didn't submit a complaint log because there was nothing really to submit. And so if we misunderstood that requirement and it requires us to submit something that, looks like a complaint log but it's blank, that's on us. We did not understand that, but we just assumed if there are no complaints, there's really no complaint log to submit. 19, compliant. Number 20, the garbage storage piles can be no taller than the right-of-way elevation. And so staff was on site last Friday. I drove by today just to verify that myself. I mean, the berm, as staff notes later in the report, the berm has grown up pretty tall, and when you drive by, you can't even really see, other than the entrance, obviously, you can't see what's going on there. You can't see the piles. The berm does a lot to screen dust, to block noise, and to basically just, block what is, an unsightly thing. I mean, there's nothing sexy or appealing about making gravel. There just isn't. And so the berm helps to block a lot of that stuff. So if there's other information that staff would like, we'd be happy to provide that. I don't know what it would be, but we would be happy to provide that. 21, compliant. 22, a couple comments. So 22 talks about these white noise technology. White noise technology is basically technology that lets somebody know you're backing up, but it's not super loud. And so a couple comments there. The condition itself requires that the equipment used on the property have white noise. And the comment is when staff was on the property, there were trucks not using the white noise. And so my understanding of that condition is that the trucks don't need to have white noise technology. And in fact, they can't. It would violate the Department of Transportation, as those trucks are on the road, and when they're backing up, they need to be loud so people don't get ran over. None of the equipment had those alarms on it. Now, one conversation that I've had with staff is that we do have some equipment that does not have white noise technology, and the reason for that is, can I give you another exhibit, is this, which is, as I mentioned earlier, we are governed by MSHA, which is mine safety. And so MSHA has a sort of different way of looking at that. MSHA does not want white noise. MSHA wants the very loud backup alarms because MSHA does not want people getting ran over by equipment. And so what you're looking at is a citation that shows that because our equipment did not have alarms on it, we were fined. And MSHA comes once a quarter, and so most quarters of the year, we are paying a $110 fine for not having backup alarms. So we would ask this board to somehow modify that condition such that we're not placed in the tenuous position of deciding which agency we should comply with. It's impossible for us to both comply with the Board of Zoning Appeals white noise requirement and to comply with MSHA's requirement. And so sometimes we sort of feel stuck in the middle there. And so we would ask the board to take that into consideration. Number 23, the board or the staff has asked for more information about max pit capacity of 100 tons per hour. I would love it if our equipment could do 100 tons an hour. The reality about surface mining and the equipment involved is that you spend about half your time running the equipment and you spend about the other half of your time servicing and maintaining the equipment. And so none of our equipment can realistically produce 100 tons per hour. It just can't. We spend too much time maintaining it and not running it. 24 compliant, 25 has never happened. 26. That is, I think, a discussion of the 26 conditions. The only note I'll make in closing is that, given the historical use of the area, the number of other more impactful manufacturing industrial activities occurring down there, and the township's future stated goal for the area, which is industrial, non-retail economic growth, I think, as the staff notes, there would be no adverse impact in granting the extension, and our use is in line with a non-retail economic base, potentially bringing jobs back to the anchor area. And so I think that our use is is a good use for that property. I think it's compatible with the other surrounding uses in the area. And the final remark I'll make before I sit down is that we have plans for the property afterwards. And so there is no incentive for us to not take care of the property, to do things on the property that we shouldn't do. At the end of the day, we are only hurting our own marketability doing that. In that way, I think that our interests and the interests of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals are very much aligned there. And that is for us to take good care of the property and the people down there that we employ. Thank you guys for your consideration. I'll stand here if any questions.
Number 22,
Yes, sir.
that's the white noise issue?
Yes, sir.
So right now, you're saying that the trucks, the dump trucks, or all those, they have louder.
Yes, so the trucks go both on the road to job sites all around town. They also go on the gravel pit. When they back up,
You've got the
you
loud
hear
noise.
them. You
Okay.
know, it's
Got
that beep, 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 like
yeah.
if you ever watch your trash get taken out, the trucks, that's the same noise. We have the same noise.
So what's white noise? Is it a lower tone?
It's a lower tone, yes.
And that makes it, I don't understand the need for it. But that's between us, I guess.
In 2009, and again, I wasn't around 2009 for this. In 2009, there were a lot of comments from the public about noise. This was also during the time where Martin Marietta was trying to get approval for its underground mining. There were a lot of concerns about mining at that time. There were a lot of concerns about noise, and I think that this condition was imposed to sort of help quell those concerns.
Now, the other equipment does have the white noise?
Yes, some of the equipment does have the white noise technology. Some of it does not, and again, we sort of feel stuck there a little bit.
Okay.
And so, you know, if there's something out there the board would like us to do that doesn't sort of get us in trouble with other government agencies, we would love to do that. We really would.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Just a quick question. What's
Yes,
your
sir.
title with the company?
I'm the
Our 3 people there, a bathroom, and we had a holding tank ever since then. They get a bathroom in it, and, you know, then we pump it out, and we haul it to a certified sewer treatment center. But as far as pollution, we don't use any chemicals whatsoever over there. In fact, we're not even allowed to have fuel on the site. Our equipment has to cross the road to go get fuel somewhere else just because of the aquifer, and that's one of the things that we did, you know. So as far as our guys need to go to the bathroom every once in a while, so we've had the holding tank, and every time it's filled, we get it pumped, and everybody's happy. So Zach was right when he said Senco has chemicals, maybe in their manufacturing, that come through us. But our facility uses no chemicals whatsoever, you know, but we do have a bathroom, so when you go to the bathroom, that's why he has to have the MDPS or whatever it is. So that's what he does. With 3 people there, we have extra equipment, but most of the time, to answer your question, sometimes we have 2 loaders, maybe 3 running with all 3 guys, and maybe an office personnel person too. But it's not like we have a whole bunch of people over there working. We try to be, you know, we start every day at 7, we close at 5. You know, when I first came in front of this board, I think it was 15 or 16 years ago, I came with an engineer, George Gipp, and I didn't have any lawyers, none whatsoever, and I didn't have really anybody on the other side. And it was really smooth, it worked good. And then there was a question about the underground mine that came the next time, so then we had to bring attorneys and everything, because everybody thought we're doing some underground mine, and, you know, we're really not. We don't plan to. You know, this is gravel that's been put down through there from glaciers from a long time ago. And once it's gone, it's over with, and we're going to stop. And, you know, Zach made a good point, you know, recession. We don't try to, you know, get as much out of there as we can. You know, I have 3 kids, and Reese is my youngest one. He's 16. I don't even think he was born the first time I came. But, you know, he might want to work here. He helps us. My other son lives not even the closest, probably the second closest house to the mine right now. We have a lot of property and stuff over there. And, you know, I guess in a way, the things really changed since I first got there. You know, when we first got there was hardly any cars, anything, tires everywhere, people, you know, more or less, you know, trespass everywhere. And we've kind of changed that, and there's a lot of things going on, but, you know, there's a lot of things that we've done. The one piece up there, we have soybeans on, it was never farmed before, but now we have a 26-acre patch of soybeans there. We had corn in it before. We took another unused piece of property, and we put 16 acres of sunflowers in. That was not even there before. And, you know, the best thing that I can say about the area is I'm only going to use it for a little bit. If my kids want to use it some more, you know, that's up to them. I'm just there for a short time, you know. My dad, he died at 92, and his birthday's tomorrow. And he just a couple months ago. But, you know, there's not too much I can give my kids except a good work ethic. And that's what I'm trying to do with my employees and everybody over there. But as far as the environment and as far as the other things go over there, the last 2 or 3 weeks, I took these pictures that I'll give you. And, you know, we have more animals and birds and stuff down there. The last couple of years, we've had a really nice bald eagle family down there. And this year, this is at the gravel pit. That's right in front of Pavestone. And the last couple, there's another one. And they had 3 babies this year. And you know, we don't tell too many people because everybody wants to see them. But you can see how, you know, it's pretty nice. We never had those before. We never had all the coyotes. We never had all the deer. We never had all the other things that are down there. And it seems like, even though it's more people, here's one where his mom just dropped the fish for him, you know. So, I mean, the area is kind of growing and it's changing, but there's still a lot of empty green space. And, you know, between Martin and Beretta, they own, you know, 600-700 acres, and we own 600-700 acres. And we're not seeing how fast we can develop it. We're not trying to see how fast we can take the material out. You know, I don't need a whole bunch to eat. I got 3 kids, you know. I would just do it nice, smooth and easy, and take it. And, you know, there's plenty of times when, you know, somebody wants to buy us out, you know. And I always think, do I want to go through this problem, or do I just want to get out, you know. If I didn't have kids, I probably would have sold out a long time ago. And it's people that are big corporations, and they want your land, they want all this stuff. You can't talk to them or call up and complain and get a guy like Zach to answer the phone. You know, he doesn't hide from the phone, neither do I. You know, we're there working every day. You know, we're not some huge corporation. You know, I was born in the area, my dad was, all 3 of my kids were. And we just want to be able to continue this till the next generation, and till we developed whatever, you know, is going to happen up there. And, you know, we like, you know, most of our neighbors we get along with, you know. But you know, there's certain things that, you know, we can do and certain things that we can't do. But we got a lot of development up there, and, you know, we want to see the area do the right thing for everybody, you know. So I'll leave these pictures with you. You guys can have those. But if you have any questions for Zach or myself or whatever, we'll try to answer them for you.
Any questions from the board for Mr. Evans?
No question.
Can you define maybe what you think the industrial waste is with item number 1? Is it the sediment that you're describing,
Well,
or you don't know?
That's what I try to say. I don't know the process Simco goes through, okay? But as far as I know, there is no industrial waste. I don't know why they call it that or whatever. We don't use any of it, okay? When you take the gravel and you put water with it, sometimes there's mud that come off of it. But the mud is really topsoil in a muddy form that we have to more or less, you know, put in a holding pond, and then as soon as it dries up, then we use it. In fact, all the sunflowers that are in that acreage over there were planted in the muck that came out of some of the ponds. So, I mean, as far as industrial use, I don't know what Simco does. You know, I'm not an expert on that staple business, but we don't even keep fuel over there.
Any further questions? Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak in favor of this appeal? Seeing none, we will now take testimony from those who oppose the appeal. Please state your name, your address, and your affiliation with the case.
John Gratch, 4304 Mount Carmel Road. I also own a small farm down there at 4300 Mount Carmel Road. And my neighbors are here, the Carries and Jason Gordon and, some other people. And I think it's important to note that this may be identified as an industrial area, but it's a mixed use. I mean, we live there, it's our home. So when we come before this hearing 15 years ago, we had a lot of questions and a lot of concerns. And, Mr. Evans and his gravel yard was held to a pretty tall order of compliance regulations. And quite honestly, I didn't think it could be done. But I live there, and I don't have a way of checking the decibels, but I can tell you that I don't need it because I really don't hear it. We don't have issues with dust getting on our vehicles or dust getting on our house or our barns. So the dust really isn't an issue. My biggest concern was having my kids on Mount Carmel Road with semi-trucks going up and down. We don't see the semis on Mount Carmel. We see a lot of big dump trucks, but we don't see the semis in the sense of tractor trailers. What tractor trailers we do see are usually stuck under the bridge down there. It seems like they hit that quite often. I think he should get a chance to get the rest of his gravel out of there. And I would like to know what they've done to mitigate a future discharge of contaminated water or whatever. What's the term they used on that? Industrial waste. I mean, is there something that can be done to prevent that from happening?
We'll let Mr. Peterson answer after you're done, sir.
Very good. That's one concern that we have. And then, lastly, I get to enjoy my property on Saturdays and Sundays. And, he's been real good about not working those hours, maybe till noon on Saturday. And I didn't read anything about that, but is that still the case? Are we no Sunday work hours here?
Right, those are the hours that were noted.
All right, well, very good. Well, that's it. Thank you very much.
So your concern has to do more with the dump trucks, about...
The trucks that we have issues with, and I don't know if Pavestone has a representative here or not, but I had reached out to them numerous times because they do drive the semis up and down that road, and anyone here can tell you that they fly up and down Mount Carmel Road. I don't know if they're getting paid by the ton or what the deal is, but they're hauling the mail. So I've gone to, I think the gentleman's name was Craig Willoughby or Willoughby, or I really don't remember. This is several years ago, and complained, and he said he would take care of it. We didn't get any resolution to it, and after numerous calls, he finally said, you know what, just call the police on them, which we did, and we still have today Pavestone trucks flying up and down the road. But pretty much that was our big concern, the trucks, and that they are not the great big semi trucks, and if they are, then be compliant with the law. Don't speed up and down the road, which we don't see the Evans semis. And if you're familiar with that road, I don't think you could drive a dump truck and make that turn if you were going too fast anyway. But that, and the biggest thing is the work hours. staying compliant with our, the request for, it's our home, too. Very good.
Jack, the trucks aren't coming from our place with paved done, they're coming all the way from the,
Oh, yeah, they're coming from way up through past Milford or something. Yeah. No, that's right.
Thank you.
All right, very good.
Mr. Peterson, a quick,
Yeah, just real quickly, so the contaminants will, again, when we go through the NPDES process, the EPA will tell us what we're allowed to discharge via the unnamed tributary and how much of it we're allowed to discharge. And to some of the board's questions before, some of those materials, we have plenty of other NPDES permits at our other facilities. Some of the materials they test for, like dissolved oxygen, ammonia, other types of bacteria, that sort of stuff that would potentially hurt the wildlife. And so all of that stuff will be tested. We'll have to stay within parameters, and we'll have to take certain action to make sure that we do that. For example, if dissolved oxygen is well, one thing that we've done is we put an aerator into the pond to get some dissolved oxygen into the water. And so we will comply with that NPDES permit just as we comply with, I have 3 other ones that I manage for the company.
thank you. Any questions for Mr. Peterson?
Nope.
Does anyone else wish to speak in opposition to this appeal?
I'm Anna Carey. I live at 4150 Mount Carmel Road. I don't know whether
Have you
this is
been
an
sworn in,
opposition.
ma'am?
What?
Have you been sworn in?
No,
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I will.
Thank you.
And I don't know whether this is a complaint, but does this mean that there should be no Evans trucks coming up and down Round Bottom Mount Carmel Road between the Evans driveway and Broadwell? What about the trucks coming from Broadwell down Mount Carmel Road towards Round Bottom? Because there are a lot of Evans dump trucks, a lot. If they all turn and left out of Evans, where are the ones coming to Evans coming from? Is there anything that keeps them from coming on that upper part of Mount Carmel Road?
No, not in this, not of these 26 conditions, there's nothing that deals with that.
Okay.
Only take a left outside when they're leaving.
So I am likely to see a lot of Evans trucks going one way and no Evans trucks going the other.
Well, the ones exiting would turn left, so you wouldn't see that.
So I won't see those.
Right.
That's just left in terms of the safety for the...
For the bridge.
The bridge, the underpass. Otherwise, if it's not an issue for the truck, then they can go either way.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's my understanding. We can have Evans confirm that if we need to.
I thought otherwise.
A lot of trucks.
Well, do you have any other?
No.
Okay.
Are there any further questions for the...
So you want to have them answer?
On that condition. The condition was that all of the trucks exiting the mine shall go left to Round Bottom Road, except for the ones that can't fit underneath the railroad track. The idea was to get all of that truck traffic straight out to Round Bottom Road versus going the other direction.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am. So all the trucks are required to go left unless they cannot fit under the underpass, and in which case then they can turn right.
Yes, but they are permitted to come the other way on Mount Carmel Road and then turn left into Evans.
Coming into the facility, I don't believe there's a...
From Broadwell, they are permitted to go down to the Evans driveway.
The condition was specifically for the trucks exiting the mine. They felt like there was more control of the trucks exiting the mine than trucks coming to the mine. That was the condition that was given back then.
Thank you. Ma'am, please state your name, address.
I've been sworn in.
Bet you've been sworn in.
Yes. My name is Peggy Johnston. I live at 8517 Broadwell Road. And I agree with, there are residents that still live in that area that were there before all of this happened down on that area. But to clarify what she just said, you're saying all trucks coming out of the mining area are to turn left to Round Bottom Road. Why are there so many trucks on Broadwell and her end of Mount Carmel Road that are loaded, quite a few are overloaded, going to the mining area? Now, these are dump trucks. They're not all going to your clean dirt fill area. These are trucks that are going into the mining area. It seems to be a lot of trucks going into that facility. And why is it taking, you've already had 15 years. I know that he had 4 or 5 years to clean the area, to get the mining started. Why is it taking so long? Is it because of material being brought onto the property from adjacent property? Okay. And I noticed that 4 of the letters in Exhibit D were from either leased property that belongs to Evans, that they have no conflict with noise, light, vibration, dust, odor, noise. It seems like a little bit of a conflict of interest when you have people that are leasing from you, giving you nice, letters of recommendation. What else do I have? Here, the wheel wash is compliant, then why are there so many calls being made to Hamilton County to clean up mud and dirt and debris when you can't see the center line, when you can't see your edge lines? If you go down Mount Carmel Road and you look on your edge lines, there's this much dirt and mud where you can't see the edge lines. I drive that road to work and from work every day. I live in Blue Ash, or I work in Blue Ash, I live in Anderson. I pay my taxes. I've made numerous phone calls. And Hamilton County Sheriff's Department has been out there, and they have to call Hamilton County to come clean up the mess. Doug has wheel washes. I didn't see any working today. It's been dry all week. His other property that you have trucks going in and out of, the area that's supposed to be used for the clean fill, there is a road that comes, or a drive that comes onto Mount Carmel Road from that clean fill. Why is there not a water wash on that area? Because a lot of mud is drug in and out under the underpass into Township. I think it's, it used to be Township Tavern. It goes down into their driveway. I know I've only got 4 minutes. Yeah, I wondered about the wheel wash. And why are there so many trucks? I guess I don't really have anything else that I can think of, but I do notice trucks running to the area. I'm not sure if they're going to the mining or the clean fill, but they run from property on Broadwell straight down the railroad tracks into a back way into the property, which is dust. There's no water trucks there. I don't know how anybody can live down there and not have a dust problem. I can't open my windows. I never have a clean car. I've talked to Carrie at the EPA on numerous occasions with dust. It's not the noise. I can't hear the backup or the white noise or, the grinders. We've had problems with Broadwell Road with some of his grinders. But I just don't understand why it's taken 15 years. He's had 15 years to do that. I don't complain that anybody's going to make money, every little business owner, but you have to agree to take care of your neighbors too. We live there. I would never have my grandchild out by my street because of the trucks going up. And I live on Broadway. I don't live on Mount Carmel. But you have truck after truck after truck. And when you say they're supposed to leave the area and turn left, what about the trucks coming in that are still fully loaded? Where's that coming from? If it's the recycle, they all fit under the railroad trestle. We just had one that found out he couldn't fit underneath of it and hit it. So use Round Bottom Road. Quit using Broadwell. Quit using that into Mount Carmel. Think of the residents that do live there. Okay? Thank you.
Any questions for this individual?
May I address some of those points at some point?
Please do.
I'll try to be very brief. She covered a lot of things. I'll be very brief. About the wheel wash, the wheel wash runs 24 hours a day, or I'm sorry, it doesn't run 24 hours a day. It runs all the time when we are running. There is not a wheel wash into the dump. One is not required. There's a wheel wash leaving the gravel permit. That's one of the conditions. It runs all the time. It's been inspected by the EPA, Hamilton County, and Anderson Township. The other road that she's discussing near the railroad, we paved ourselves to keep dust down on our dime. We clean, we have a Bobcat, it's called, skid steer formerly, but it's a little machine that has a big broom on it. We sweep the road every day with that. Some of the mud, again, keep in mind, we are but one of many companies down there. There are a lot of trucks. B-Way has a lot of trucks. Fast Track Auction gets about 30 semi-loads a day. There are plenty of other companies down there, Senco as well, that use a lot of trucks. Not every mud problem is an Evans-caused problem. In terms of a conflict of interest that was mentioned, those experts are not tenants who discussed the noise and the odor and the pollution. They are not tenants, and we did not pay them. Some of the delays are very much outlined in my brief, so I'll keep my comments short. The only thing that's not in there, other than the market conditions and some of the difficulty we had, if you remember, the copper theft was a huge deal about a decade ago. We were burglarized about every single night. We still are burglarized every single night, and so when people steal all your fittings, it's very difficult to run your equipment. In terms of weight of the trucks, I don't know how you can look at a truck and tell whether it's overweight or not. The Sheriff's Department has like a lot of scales they bring around to measure that. That's not an eyeball test. In terms of the number of trucks, again, we're not the only company down there. We do employ about 300 people, and that's something that we're proud of. We provide a lot of jobs and a lot of payroll to the area. I'm very familiar with Carrie Castle, and I talk with her on a weekly basis. There was a complaint recently. It was not about Evans. It came to my desk because, as most things happen down there, they end up on my desk because everyone thinks it's Evans, but it wasn't. There's a utility company. If you've noticed in Anderson Township, all the wooden telephone poles are being replaced with the metal poles that are supposed to be better. So Duke has set up shop down there. Duke is replacing all those poles. They have dozens and dozens of trucks. The dust that was created was by the PAR trucks. I sent those pictures to Carrie. That's a public record. I worked with PAR myself to come up with a dust control solution, not for Evans trucks, but for PAR trucks, where we provide them some water. I think that addresses everything. Thank you.
Can I rebuttal on that?
Yes, ma'am, please step forward.
The pictures you're talking about, I sent those pictures. I sent them to Paul also. They showed PAR trucks and Evans trucks. So it wasn't just PAR. Evans owns the property. He's responsible for the property. He leases it. They had two trucks that came through to keep the dust down. I took more pictures today. Just because you do it one time, that doesn't mean you don't have to do it again. Okay?
A month ago, we've seen the one truck twice.
Does anyone else wish to speak in opposition of this appeal? Have you been sworn in, sir?
I have. Jason Gordon, 4340 Mount Carmel Road, adjacent to the mine site. If Doug's son lives second closest, I probably live the closest, so I see a lot of this stuff happening. While dust isn't a problem directly at my home all the time, it's certainly an issue down at the road. It does make it to my house on extremely windy days. Debris on the road is a very real problem, and it doesn't get cleaned off daily, as council suggests. Debris comes in many forms, either coming off the trucks, which are not getting washed. Every truck doesn't get washed. Or it runs off of the Doug's adjacent property, which has recently plugged up the sanitary water drain, the wastewater drain. The county had to come out and clean the ditch, empty the drain. All that came off of Mr. Evans' property. The trucks run to and from Doug's adjacent properties with unsecured loads. They don't get tarped. Stuff falls off of trucks that don't get tarped, especially when they're very full. Damage to the public roadway. As Doug stated, he can't refill his vehicles on the property. He drives them across the street. These are tracked vehicles. They're very heavy loaders. That's a township road, and it's very noticeably damaged from having the vehicles run across the street. The low clearance railroad bridge, I question if that's the best direction to send the trucks all the time. I mean, they're wide left of center as they approach the railroad bridge. Creates for unsafe driving conditions. I just feel like that's going to be an accident at some point. And I don't understand how the mining operations are consistent with the township's comprehensive use plan. The way that I read the comprehensive use plan, you've got that land marked for light industry, not heavy industry. In light industry, you've defined as small-scale industrial uses such as warehouses, storage, limited manufacturing, research and development, transit terminals, and wholesale activities in enclosed facilities. The comprehensive plan is specific in that the proposed land uses are purposely site-specific to provide clear definition to the public and to the township as to the proposed use of the land. So as a mine, the township would consider the current use as heavy industry/excavation, which again is not consistent with the land use as outlined in the comprehensive plan. Right turns out of the facility are a very real problem as well. They happen all the time. It's been much longer since, since before the sign was knocked down. Like I said, I'm there all the time. I get my mail. I run down the driveway with my child. I see it all the time. Their left turn or their right turns out of the facility. They're both Evans vehicles. They're pavestone vehicles. Who's down there getting gravel from Doug? So I would just caution the board to unscheduled visits, or take another look and just make sure that you know what's happening down there before you make any kind of real judgment. That's all I have.
Any questions from the board? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak in opposition to this appeal? Seeing none, does the appellant wish to add any further rebuttal testimony?
No, nothing further this time. I think it's all been addressed. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Does the board need any further information? Does anyone wish to start off a discussion whether we should make a decision now or do we need more information?
I believe there's still more information needed.
Okay, Ms. Wagner, is anything particular you think we should further pursue?
Checking on the things that were noted by the appellant. In particular, checking back with the EPA on those violations. Concerns on the neighboring, in Exhibit D, the neighbors who have given letters in support, and whether or not any of those companies are on, if there's a conflict of interest, if it's property that's owned by Evans and they're tenants of the Evans property. Checking about the complaints of the dust with the EPA and whether the Evans trucks were involved, as well as the other power trucks. Checking into complaints with Hamilton County and the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department. Those are a few of my notes.
Okay. Anybody else on the board have any comments, questions, or concerns?
No.
Anyone wish to make a motion as to how to proceed?
I think we should define clearly what we're asking for. for next meeting, I assume? And who's responsible for what material?
Does Township Council have any suggestions?
Not in particular. I mean, obviously, you've had concerns from one of your board members. I don't know if there's a way in which we can just create a list of specifically what you either want staff to look into more specifically, or Evans, obviously, the more specific you could get, the better. And we've got concerns of checking with the EPA, relationships as to the entities listed in Exhibit D, figuring out whose traffic it is, although I'm not quite sure exactly how to do that, short of some camera or something to, and then trying to trace that, that's a little difficult to specifically do in a fair and honest way. Obviously, there's the complaint, the question as the complaints with Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. We could certainly speak with them. I don't know if those are all the different areas you'd like noted, or...
There are a couple more. The industrial waste, that's been brought up several times by the residents. And I know they understand that they still need to address that as well, Evans. And all I have written here is another opacity test next to number 1.
So we did receive an email from Carrie Castle regarding the opacity test, and the testimony that was given is correct. This is a one-time test that was performed in 2009, and it was passed. I think it would be up to the board to determine if you think another one might help you to decide if they are in compliance with some of these conditions related to emissions and the other items that the opacity test may address. So as far as, are compliant with the opacity test and they're meeting their requirements, I think it would be up to you to determine if you think another one would be necessary to help you make your decision.
Understood.
May I say something else, or does that pass?
I think we're still open. Please step to the podium.
You're talking about the opacity test. I noticed that was complied with in 2009 before the facility was open to mining. That's what it says in the paperwork. I can't see it right now. But if I read that right, that test was done before the mining was done? Is that right?
That is the way the sentence reads.
Is that what it says?
The last test was completed in 2009 prior to mine operations beginning.
You have tonnage, and I don't remember what the exhibit is, but it starts before 2009, I think.
Testimony was also given that operations were minimal during that time because of the down economy.
Exhibit? What is that exhibit?
If you see how many tonnage were produced in 2009, it was...
So I'll read the email directly from Carrie Castle. So it says, there was an opacity test at the facility on April 15, 2009. The test passed at that time. No further opacity testing is required at this time. So again, I think it's up to the board to determine if you think that would help you make a decision.
I mean, the
If you
tonnage
think
has
more.
increased over the years since 2009. That was 9 years ago. And the way it's written, it says it was before mining was in operation. So that was just a question I had.
I can clear something up on an opacity.
Please.
So the opacity test, to your point, we were mining well before the opacity test was taken. The opacity test is required to be taken when the equipment is operating at full bore, full capacity, and so the tonnage is really not relevant. It's the equipment that is being tested. The equipment was running at full capacity when the opacity test was done at that time. So it's not like the equipment was running at half bore because we weren't extracting as much gravel. The test is not worth anything if you're not running at full capacity.
I have one question.
Please.
I'm interested to know if Senco has
been advised by the EPA as to what to do with its runoff.
Guess I would ask council, is that within our scope of review? Senco's not even...
Well, no, I understand that, but since it's on our property, I would think it would be a concern.
My question is to council as well, too. I mean, are we stepping outside of our bounds if we start asking other neighboring...
Well, you can certainly ask, but it doesn't mean that they have to comply.
answer.
We could attempt to reach out to them and for what information they may voluntarily give.
Senco has an NPDS permit for its discharge as well.
We can ask.
So what I'm gathering from the board is that we still need further information, and probably the best suggestion would be just to continue the case. Ms. Wagner, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, since you had originally voiced your opinion, would you mind making a motion on that?
I make a motion that we continue this case so that we can gather additional information.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Nasilevich?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Ms. Wagner?
Aye.
Mr. Skank?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye. With that, we will continue this case to the next meeting. We'll work with staff to get more information, but at this time, we'll be closing the public hearing for today. No further comment will be taken, but it will be open again for public comment at the next meeting.
Just for those of you that are in the audience, the next regularly scheduled meeting would be August the 2nd, and it'd be at 5:30.
Is there any further business for the board? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Nasilevich?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Ms. Wagner?
Aye.
Mr. Skank?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.